Imagine a man so rich, so powerful, that he didn't just sell illegal liquor, he owned the entire supply chain, from distilleries to distribution, controlling nearly a third of all bootlegged alcohol in America. He lived like royalty through Gatsby-esque party, where he gave away diamond-studded watches as party favors and built an empire that made even Al Capone take notice. But his story wasn't just one of wealth. It was one of betrayal, revenge, and ultimately murder. This is the amazing tale of George Remus, the real-life Great Gatsby of bootlegging. Like Fitzgerald's enigmatic J. Gatsby, Remus was a man of who reinvented himself, transforming from a respected lawyer into the king of the bootleggers. But while Gatsby's empire was built on whispers and mystery, Ramesses was carved out with bribes, corruption, and ruthless ambition. He didn't just break the law, he manipulated using the legal expertise to find loopholes that allowed him to amass a fortune selling forbidden liquor. This is the great story of George Remus. Yet, just like Gatsby's dream, Remus's golden world would come crashing down. A tangled web of betrayal, by his wife no less, led him down a path of rage, ruin, and ultimately murder. But how did a former defense attorney become one of the most notorious crime figures in American history? And why did so many turn to bootlegging in the lawless playground of the 1920s? Let's dive in. Hello everybody, my name is Aurora. Welcome to my basement where everything is work in progress, just like me. The year was 1920, and the United States was about to embark on a bold experiment that would reshape its culture forever. The 18th Amendment was passed, making it illegal to sell alcohol across the country. It was a victory for temperance activists, people who believed that alcohol was the root cause of much of society's problems. They saw it as a fuel behind domestic violence, behind crime, behind poverty, and moral decay. By banning alcohol, they thought they could create a healthier, more virtuous nation. But the reality was far more complicated than they've imagined. In the end, things weren't as they were supposed to be. Prohibition was born at a time when America was changing rapidly. The country was no longer just a patchwork of farms and small towns. It was becoming an industrial powerhouse, teeming with new ideas, new immigrants, and new ways of life. The shift brought with it a clash of virtues and the clash of values. For many Americans, especially in rural and religious communities, alcohol was seen as a danger to the fabric of society. They believed it was tearing families apart, breeding crime, and creating an unhealthy, immoral atmosphere. The rise of organizations like the Anti-Saloon League and the Women Christian Temperance Union amplified these concerns, and they lobbied tirelessly for the country to go dry. But as often happens with sweeping changes, prohibition didn't turn out as it planned. Rather than stamping out alcohol use, it drove the demand for it underground. The law of supply and demand did its thing. Where there was a demand, there would be a supply, no matter how illegal or dangerous. Instead of ridding the country of booze, prohibition made it one of the most profitable illegal markets in history. Speakeasies, hidden bars where alcohol was served in secret, popped up in cities across the country, and the criminals saw an opportunity to cash in on the law's failure. Out of this chaos, notorious figures like Al Capone and George Remus built vast criminal empires, controlling the smuggling, distribution, and sale of alcohol. These men didn't just make millions, they built entire cities of corruption, bribing police and politicians and causing violence to protect their illegal operations. Prohibition gave rise to a new class of organized crime, one that would shape the landscape of American life for years to come. What these activists didn't foresee was that the law they passed to rid the country of vice would end up creating a new form of it. Prohibition didn't fix social ills, it spawned a whole new set of problems. Instead of making America sober and virtuous, it gave birth to a booming underground economy where criminals thrived and ordinary people broke the law for the thrill, for the money, or just the desire to have a simple drink. In the end, the 18th of Amendment didn't just outlaw alcohol, it helped fuel the very thing it was meant to destroy: America's insatiable thirst for rebellion and profit. What do you think? Comment below if you have an idea. Of course, alcohol had been a central part of the American culture for centuries, and prohibition didn't change that. It only forced the industry underground. Speakeasies sprang up across the nation, and demand for illicit liquor skyrocketed. By 1925, there were an estimated 100,000 speakeasies in New York City alone, and cities like Chicago and Detroit became hubs for illegal alcohol trade. Organized crime flourished during the Prohibition, turning bootlegging into a billion-dollar industry. Mobsters like Al Capone built criminal empires that rivaled legitimate businesses, reportedly earning over 60 million annually. This is equivalent to $1.5 billion in today's money. The US government crackdown on illegal alcohol cost over 300 million in enforcement efforts while losing an estimated 11 billion in tax revenue. Capone's wealth and influence in the 1920s echoed the vast fortunes of modern illicit enterprises. Drug lords like Joaquim El Chapo Guzman commanded criminal organizations with revenues exceeding $3 billion per year, while figures in the digital underworld such as Edward Craven built massive wealth through online gambling, generating more than $500 million in profits within just 3 years. Just as Capone's empire thrived on prohibition and law enforcement blind spots, today's billion-dollar underground market exploits new frontiers, whether in narcotics, cryptocurrency, or high-stakes gambling. The business of crime has evolved, but the formula remains the same. Where laws create scarcity, fortunes are made in the shadows. For those willing to take the risk, bootlegging became a quick route to wealth. Some of the most powerful figures in American history, including members of the Kennedy family, made fortunes during Prohibition. Joseph Kennedy, the father of future President John F. Kennedy, was rumored to have ties to illegal liquor distribution, helping him build a financial empire that would later dominate American politics. The incentives to break the law were clear. A single bottle of bootleg whiskey could sell for 10 times its original price, and with demand far exceeding supply, fortunes were made overnight. The average American still consumed nearly as much alcohol as they did before Prohibition, but now it was controlled by criminals rather than legitimate businesses. George Remus, the real Gatsby, wasn't just another bootlegger. He was a mastermind, a former lawyer who used his legal knowledge to exploit loopholes in the Volstead Act. He legally acquired liquor for medicinal purposes and then diverted it into the black market. His operation was massive. With a network stretching across the country, he amassed millions, living a life of excess in his grand Cincinnati mansion, hosting lavish parties that even inspired the great Gatsby. His home, dubbed the Marble Palace, was filled with extravagant decor, swimming pools, and even gold-plated bathroom fixtures. His parties were legendary. Guests were gifted diamond jewelry, silk robes, cash-filled envelopes, and even cars for the ladies. But as Remus grew in power, so did his enemies. Law enforcement officials were desperate to take him down, and competition from rival bootleggers made him a target. In 1927, he was convicted of violating prohibition laws and sentenced to 2 years in the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. While in prison, George Remus made a chilling discovery that would forever haunt him. His wife, Imogen, had been conspiring with a man named Franklin Dodge, a corrupt federal agent who had been tasked by the government to spy on Remus and uncover the location of his fortune. Franklin Dodge, the agent, was sent to infiltrate in Remus' empire and gather intelligence, managed to get close to him while he was incarcerated. But instead of remaining loyal to his mission, Franklin Dodge befriended Remus in prison, slowly working his way into Remus's trust. Over time, Franklin Dodge learned all the secrets of Remus's vast empire, his hidden assets, his smuggling operations, and the details of his wealth. Once out of the prison, Franklin Dodge betrayed Remus and betrayed the government in the most devastating way. He quit his government job and began a secret life with Imogen Remus, who had been working behind Remus's back. Imogen was George Remus's wife. Together, they systematically stripped Remus of his fortune, liquidating his distilleries, businesses, and even jewelry. What had once been a massive criminal empire was slowly dismantled, leaving George Remus without nothing. But the betrayal went beyond just money. Franklin Dodge, the corrupt agent, and Imogen Remus' relationship blossomed into an affair, adding even a deeper layer of personal treachery to the financial ruin. By the time Remus was released from prison, he found himself not only penniless, but also heartbroken, betrayed by both the women he loved and the man who had once pretended to be his ally. You may wonder, who was Imogen Remus? Imogen Remus was born on September 15, 1884 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Imogen was a woman of calculated charm and ruthless ambition. She was more than just the wife of a bootlegging king. She was a master manipulator, a shapeshifter, someone who could play the devoted spouse or the seductive female femme fatale at will. Her motivations ran deeper than love. She was drawn to power, wealth, and the intoxicating thrill of reinvention. Growing up in a working class family, Imogen despised the limitations of her modest upbringing and sought escape through a series of self made identities. She cycled through names like Gussie, Jean, and Susan, carefully curating different versions of herself as she climbed the social ladder. Even before she met George Remus, she understood that perception was power, going so far as to send fabricated stories to newspapers in a desperate bid for fame. When she crossed paths with George Remus, she saw more than a man. She saw a golden opportunity. He was brilliant, he was wealthy, and dangerously infatuated with her. She once confided to a friend that she planned to roll him for his role, street slang for taking his money, and that if marriage was the price, she'd pay it gladly. So she did. As the queen to the king of the bootleggers, she lived a life of opulence, diamonds, silk gowns, extravagant parties. She was no longer a poor girl from Milwaukee. She was a woman of power, wrapped in wealth, adored, and most importantly, untouchable. She spent years carefully orchestrating the theft of his empire, even betraying him to the federal government when the situation presented itself. Furious and desperate for retribution, Remus hired private investigators to track Imogen's activities. He soon learned that she filed for divorce and intended to flee with Franklin Dodge, the corrupt federal agent who befriended Remus while incarcerated, taking what little remained of his fortune. Consumed by rage, Remus plotted revenge. On the morning of 6th of October 1927, Remus was on his way to court for his divorce proceedings when he spotted Imogen and her daughter in a taxi. Without hesitation, he ordered his driver to chase them down. At Cincinnati's Eden Park, Remus forced their taxi off the road, dragging Imogen out onto the pavement. Witnesses watched in horror as he pulled a pistol and shot her in the stomach at point-blank range. Bleeding out in the arms of her own daughter, Imogen gasped her last words. "Oh, please don't." After a brief argument, he shot Imogen in the stomach, ending her life at the age of 43. She failed to see the one thing more dangerous than a bootlegging king with nothing to lose: a man consumed by vengeance. Some saw it as a poetic end, the final chapter in a tale of deception and betrayal, a cunning woman undone by the very man she sought to outmaneuver. Others, however, were outraged, calling it cold-blooded murder, demanding it that George Remus pay for his crime. Justice, it seems, was as tangled as the love and lies that led to that fateful day. Before ascending to the infamy as the king of the bootleggers, George Remus led a life marked by ambition, reinvention, and personal struggles. Born on 13th of November 1976 in Landsberg, Germany, Remus emigrated to United States with his family in 1992, eventually settling in Chicago by 1985. His early life was shaped by a desire for a better future, and by the age of 14, Remus began working at his uncle's pharmacy. Here, he demonstrated a keen intellect and an unwavering work ethic, traits that would become the foundation of his success. By 1899, at just 23 years old, Remus had already earned his license as a pharmacist and bought his uncle's pharmacy, positioning himself for a bright future. But his ambition stretched far beyond the world of medicine. With a drive to reshape his destiny, Remus pursued a law degree, completing a rigorous 3-year program in just 18 months. His sharp mind and relentless determination earned him admission to the Illinois bar in 1904, and he soon became a well-known criminal defense attorney. During this time, Remus married his first wife, Lillian Clough, in 1899. They had a daughter together called Romola, who later became a child actress in silent films. She played Dorothy in Wizard of Oz. Remus's marriage, like much of his life, was tumultuous. Lillian Remus, his wife, would later become a footnote in Remus's complex and dramatic personal life as he ventured deeper into the world of crime and corruption. Eventually, she faded from his story entirely, left behind as he chased fortune, power, and ultimately a new love. It is even said that he moved in with another woman, leaving his wife and daughter behind. The stress of balancing a family and his growing legal career eventually took its toll, leading to a shift in Remus's path. As a criminal defense attorney, Remus gained prominence for his dramatic court tactics and his ability to navigate complex legal challenges. But even in the courtroom, he was always looking to climb higher, always searching for a new opportunity to grow his fortune and power. The rest, as they say, would be history. Remus's rise to prominence in the bootlegging world marked the beginning of his transformation from a lawyer to one of the most notorious figures in American criminal history. This combination of pharmaceutical knowledge and legal acumen would later serve as the foundation for his ventures into bootlegging during Prohibition, setting the stage for his transformation into one of America's most notorious figures. What I found fascinating about this story is that he started as a pharmacist, then he was a lawyer, and then he found a new opportunity to be a criminal. So the border, it's very small and sometimes it's not noticeable. And I think Remus developed a reputation as a flamboyant defense attorney, often employing theatrical strategies to sway juries. His detractors thought he was over the top and too much of a showman, often crying, weeping, and jumping around as he made his closing argument or cross-examined a witness. So he craved admiration. He wanted to be in the center of attention. He had no issue with that. One of the Remus's most notable cases was the defense of William Cheney Ellis in 1914, where he employed a novel defense strategy known as transitory insanity, which later evolved into what we know today as the temporary insanity defense. This is absolutely fascinating. So, he was one of the guys who invented what today will be temporary insanity defense, and it just showed the power of his intellect at this point. Financially, Remus' legal career was highly lucrative, so he didn't need to go from economic perspective. By 1920s, he was earning approximately $50,000 annually, a substantial sum at the time, when the median income was just $1,200 per year. I repeat, per year. This income would be equivalent to over $600,000 today, reflecting his success and prominence in the legal field. The question that I have is why $600,000 is not enough or was not enough for this guy? Why did he crave more and was not satisfied with what he had? Of course, um, we see in today's world many examples of billionaires that cannot or are not willing to stop. What do you think? Was Remus's desire justified? Is it just a normal human nature, human desire, or is it something that must be wiped out from our humanity? Despite his success, Remus became disillusioned with the legal profession, particularly as prohibition led to an influx of bootlegging cases. Recognizing the immense profits to be made, he transitioned from defending bootleggers to becoming one himself, leveraging his legal expertise to build a vast and profitable empire. He saw an opportunity and he took it. He didn't wait. During the peak of his bootlegging empire around 1921 or in 1923, George Remus's fortune was estimated at approximately $40 million. That would be worth around 700 million to 1.2 billion today, adjusting for inflation. A huge fortune. He reportedly made up to $5 million in a single year, an astronomical sum at the time. George Remus's annual earnings of $5 million during his bootlegging peak would be comparable to nearly $94 million per year today. His bootlegging network controlled over 3,000 drugstores and distilleries, allowing him to dominate the illegal liquor trade in the US. His opulent lifestyle reflected his wealth. He spent $200,000 on his mansion, about $3.5 million today, and once gave away luxury cars to guests at a party. So it's absolutely amazing. What drives a man like George Remus? This is my question. His story is one of ambition turned obsession, love turned revenge. Many criminologists argue that Remus exhibited traits of narcissistic personality disorder. His grandiosity, his sense of entitlement, and his belief that he was above the law are key traits to support this theory. Remus was a man driven by an unshakable belief in his own superiority, a trait that is often associated with narcissists. Remus exhibited as well a pattern of grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy in both his personal and professional life. He was notorious for his dramatic courtroom tactics and his desire to be the center of attention. As a criminal defense lawyer, he didn't just want to win cases, he wanted to impress and astound others with his legal prowess. His decision to murder his wife wasn't just about betrayal, it was about control. In a highly publicized trial, he pleaded temporary insanity, the same concept he invented after learning of his wife's affair and theft. He claimed actually he had suffered an emotional explosion after he found out of his wife's affair and theft, and remarkably, the jury believed him. The trial captivated the nation, and the verdict shocked the legal community. The jury acquitted him after deliberating just 19 minutes and found him not guilty, showing us his amazing capacity to convince others. He served only a short time in a mental institution before walking free, a testament to his ability to manipulate the system, even in the face of murder charges. After being acquitted of murder by reason of insanity, George Remus was committed to a state asylum in Ohio. He spent approximately 7 months there before being released. While specific details about the cause of his confinement are not readily available, it's important to know that during the early 20th century, state-run asylums were typically funded by state governments and did not require patients or their families to pay for care. Therefore, Remus would not have incurred personal expenses for his stay in the asylum. George Remus may have escaped severe punishment, but his empire was gone, his fortune lost, and his name forever tarnished. His third and final wife was Blanche Watson, his longtime secretary. They married after his release from the asylum. He spent his final years in obscurity. By the 1930s, he attempted a political comeback, running unsuccessful for Congress in 1932. He then returned to practicing law in Cincinnati, though never with the same prominence as before. The once feared bootlegger spent his last years in modest circumstances, suffering from declining health. He passed away in 1952 at the age of 77, reportedly penniless and living with his daughter, trapped in the memories of his bygone empire. His legacy, however, lives on in the American crime history. His lavish lifestyles, extravagant parties, and dramatic downfall make him one of the most fascinating criminals of the 20th century. Some say he was the real-life Jay Gatsby, a man who built his empire through wealth, charm, and deception, only to lose it all in the end. It seems Fitzgerald, the author, met with Remus in real life. Thus, we can speculate that Gatsby's life is inspired by George Remus, the real person whose life is even more interesting than the one of the character. So what do you think? I'm curious about your opinion. Do you see Remus as a genius who played the system to perfection, or was he a dangerous narcissist who let his thirst for control destroy everything he built? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the crime history, let me know. Consider subscribing, and thank you for watching. Bye.